Good morning. Happy Sunday. Welcome to Hobby Evolution, episode 260. It's a Sunday, day after the Madison card show. So I want to talk about how things went yesterday. It was a success, had a great time, sold a bunch of cards, bought a few things. All in all, I think at least everybody that I talked to had a great time. Uh, was looking forward to the next show, which, by the way, is going to be Saturday, May 22nd. So if you're in the area, southern Wisconsin, northern Illinois, Saturday, May 22nd. No other competing shows that day. So I think we'll have a great turnout. And once again, we had a really good turnout early on, and then it kind of dwindled later in the day. So we'll probably cut the hours back a little bit, maybe an hour to 2 hours, go 9 to 3 probably for the next show. So looking forward to round 2 next month. What's up, Herman? Good morning. Had a great show. If you missed Hobby Roundtable last night, check it out on Herman's channel, 3B Collection. Discussed card shops. We touched on the card show. We talked about how we PC and how each person collects differently. So good discussion last night on the Hobby Roundtable. So let's get into first off, I'll show off what I bought. So the first thing, actually, one of the first tables that I saw before the show started, I was just checking on the vendors and making sure they had everything. And one of the vendors who actually traveled up from the Chicago suburbs had some Cubs stuff, and he had a Chris Bryant card that I'd never seen before. And it was a slab. So I bought 2 cards, and they're both slabs. And I am not I don't actively look for graded cards. I don't buy slabs, but I did yesterday. The only cards I bought. So I found this. What's up, Jeremy? Good morning. Yes, it was a lot of fun. Great success. I had to take a fundamentals of engineering licensing exam. Yeah, I hear you. That takes priorities over a card show. So hopefully you can come up next month. May 22nd is the show. What's up, Dan? So I saw this Chris Bryant. It's from 2016 from FanFest, All-Star Game FanFest. And it's Chris Bryant. It is University of San Diego uniform. And it's a Beckett grade 9.5. And it was like $20. And I'm like, well, that's basically the cost of grading. I've never seen this card. This is really cool. So I didn't buy it right away because I don't want to scoop up, running the show. I feel it's bad form to buy things before the public and the actual customers come through. So I wanted to give it some time, and I went back a few hours into the show, after the big rush in the morning. It was still there. So I'm like, okay, I gave everybody else a chance. It's still here. I'm going to buy it. So I bought that. And then the other slab I bought was a Topps Living Set graded 9 from PSA, Rizzo. And this was from a customer. He was just walking around. He had a stack of slabs that he was looking to sell. And he asked, and I said, I'll take a look. Sure. I only collect Cubs. And he's like, well, there's a Cub in there. So it's Anthony Rizzo. And I'm not a living set guy. And again, I'm not a big slab collector. So I'm like, thanks, but I'm going to pass. I'm not really interested in this. And he's like, well, I'll sell it to you real cheap, $20. And again, that's like the price of a. I actually don't have this living set card. The only Cubs living set cards I have, for some reason, I bought 9 Javi Baez. That was a dumb move. I should have just bought 2 if I wanted to, but I bought 9. And I bought a David Bodie, and I think I have one other one, but I'm not sure. But I don't have. I know I don't have the Anthony Rizzo. So not only is it a new unique card for me, it was a good deal. So those were the 2 cards that were added to my collection, and I got some memorabilia. Dan played his first league game, won 10-9. Nice. Nice win by a run. So one of the other tables And again, I stopped by this vendor's table later in the day, and he was he was cool, and he's also a Chicago fan, and he had out a Walter Payton rookie. I think it was a 7.5. He had a PSA 5 Ernie Banks rookie card, and he wasn't selling. So he had like really high prices on those cards. So he was like, the top row was basically, he was just showing, and if a huge offer came, like a too good to pass up offer, he was going to take it. So he had a price on, I think it was the Peyton, and he had like 2,000 on it or something. It was much higher than comps, and he had a guy come up and was going to take it. And I think he's like, oh, I'm going to think about it. I'll come back. And he never came back. And the seller was like, the vendor was like, I'm really happy he didn't come back, because even though I set that price, I didn't want to sell it. So I'm glad he never came back. So went back, and there's one, mostly cards, and he had some other stuff, but one baseball, and it was Gary Scott, who was the Cubs' like next big thing in the early 90s. He was going to be the next Ron Santo. He had a huge spring training, got called up, and just never made it with the Cubs. I mean, he did play in the big leagues for he played a little bit. I think he played for the Florida Marlins early in their existence. And I'm like, is that a Gary Scott autograph? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, are you? Because he was just telling me the story that he didn't want to sell some of the stuff. I'm like, are you selling it? He's like, yeah, $10. I'm like, $10 sold, because I do collect Cubs autographed baseballs, and I don't have a Gary Scott in my collection. So for $10, an awesome deal. Probably this is my favorite purchase of the day, and I'll show you some of the favorite items that I was gifted. Dan's never heard of Gary Scott. He was a top prospect in 1990. So he was in 91 products. So he had a 91 Upper Deck that was a hot card back then. And then he had some 92, and I think he even went into 93. He had a couple Marlins cards as well, but I think his big league cards with like Topps Upper Deck, Score, the companies were 91, 92. So those were my purchases. So then my buddy Scott came up, and Scott worked for the Chicago Cubs for about 30 years. So I'm glad he made it up. We've communicated Facebook, Twitter, but we've never met in person. So it was awesome to meet him. And I just wanted to hear like his stories, and because he knew Gary Scott, like he worked in the minor leagues. He was working in scouting at that time. He was director of baseball operations. So just super cool dude. And he brought up some awesome Cubs memorabilia. One I don't have in here is team issued Cubs duffel bag. So this is awesome. So now when I go to Cubs convention, when I go to spring training, I've got a Cubs duffel bag that, I can tote along. So that was super cool. Cubs duffel bag. So I did an interview with Wrigley Wax, who was one of my inspirations to the blog portion of my 1 Million Cubs project. Dan's like, beer. Yeah, I'm getting to the beer. So Wrigley Wax, in my interview with him, and this was in 2019, I think, said that he'd been looking for a rare Jewel Foods picture, and I think they're 5x7, of Jim Hickman from 1973. And he'd been searching everywhere for like 3 years and never came across. He had all the other ones, but Jim Hickman was elusive. So Scott sent me a picture, and he's like, is this what you're looking for? This is the 73 Jewel Foods Jim Hickman. That's like, for some reason, super rare. So he gave that to me. And by the way, Wrigley Wax did find one last year. I did a search for his blog, and last July, I think he finally, so it was going on 5 years for him searching the Jim Hickman 73 Jewel Foods. Also, Aran Santo, this is 1973 Jewel Foods. Glenn Beckert from 73 Jewel. I think this is Jim Hickman. I think this is 71. I've got to double check. And I think I have this one. I'm not sure. Don Kessinger. And then one more. Look at that mustache on Bob Locker. And I think that's a 71 also. Actually, I think that Hickman was 70 and Bob Locker and Kessinger were 71 maybe, or 72. Yes, Dan, those are facsimiles, facsimile autos. What's up, Matt? Good morning. So then he also brought me up, and this was, so he came up and we were chit-chatting, and he said, I've got some things for you in the car. Can I bring them in? I said, yeah, absolutely. He's like, I have some beer for you. And I said, oh, hey. And he goes, but you can't drink it. So the reason why I can't drink it is because it's about 30 years old. It's old style Ron Santo. So this came out at some point in the 90s. I'm not sure when. I think early 90s maybe. So old style with Ron Santo. And these are full. Like these are full, heavy 6-pack of beer. So awesome stuff from Scott. So that's what I picked up. So the show itself, I'll kind of run through the whole setup. And so we did it at the Sheraton. We had a second floor ballroom, 5,300 square feet, beautiful layout. We met with them. We did a walkthrough last week or 2 weeks ago, just to kind of lay out. We didn't have the final number of tables, so we didn't know the layout, but then they gave us the schematics or whatever of the room on Thursday or Friday, once we had kind of a rough final count. We did set 5 tables aside just in case we had some late additions, which we actually did Saturday morning. So I was really impressed with, they were super awesome to work with. So easy. They did all the setup. We had signs everywhere. So you walk in, no matter which entrance, there were signs at like every location. Card show this way, the elevator card, Madison card show, front door, at the stairwell. We had a registration table they set up for us. We hired a person to work the registration table to take names. And we charge $1 admission. So that way it's an easy way for a head count. So that was all set up. We actually have the whole second floor. So not just the ballroom. So if we expand in future shows, we can actually add tables out into the not really a hallway, but the other areas on the second floor. So that's awesome. So that was perfect. It was set up. It's a huge room. It was well spaced out, a lot of room to walk around. They gave us enough chairs per table. So if you have quarter boxes, I had two chairs at my table for quarter boxes, and for most of the show, there were people sitting down, digging through the quarter boxes. So that was one thing that I wanted as a customer to a card show, is I want space and I want time and I want to look through quarter boxes, and having a chair and space to do that is one of the things that attracted me to promote something like this. So there were tablecloths on clean black tablecloths. So it looked really nice. It was well presented. So the Sheraton did a fantastic job. Did you get confirmations from sellers for next month? Yeah, Dan. So that's kind of what made me proud of our how we went about that first show, because we had so there's another show in Madison that was supposed to be today from 10 to 2 at another hotel. And this has been going on for, several years. And it's a monthly show. And I had one vendor who drove up from Chicago, and he was going to double dip. He did Saturday's show. He was going to do our show Saturday. He got a hotel room and was going to do the show today. So he was going to do the two shows. As he was setting up, he gets an email from the show promoter of today's show that it's canceled. So he was really upset. So that's how his day started. And I'm like, I was really nervous because now he's upset. If he doesn't have a good day, he's not going to come back. One of the other guys who actually traveled up from Florida, and he had a lot of high-end stuff, like a lot of high-end stuff, really, really cool stuff. We were talking, and I told him over the phone this was our first show, but I don't know if he must not have heard me or thought about it, but he asked me how our previous, I'm like, this is our first show. And so he's like, oh man. So now I'm super nervous because I've got two vendors who are on edge before the show even begins. So an hour into the show, the guy who drove up from Chicago, who's upset because now he's got a hotel room for no reason, and his show tomorrow is canceled. He comes up to me an hour into the show and he goes, is this your first show? And I said, yeah. And he goes, this is awesome. He goes, I'll be back. I've already made money and we're only an hour into the show. He's like, I'm coming back. So I said, May 22nd. He's like, I'll be here. So that was kind of like that made me happy. I didn't care if I sold any quarter cards. I wanted customers to be happy with the experience. And I wanted vendors to be happy with not only making money, but I want it worth their time, because if I had a table, I want to at least break even, make some money, make it worth, a little bit of my time and have fun. Like, it should be an experience. A card show should be an experience. And I had another vendor who had a bunch of vintage memorabilia and he didn't do well with sales, but I said, did you have a good time? And he's like, oh yeah, I haven't done this in 30 years. And he used to travel to shows, and he did big city shows, Chicago, San Francisco. He sold to Mr. Mint, Al Rosen, 30 years ago. And he's like, hey, I had a good time. I know, I'll probably be back. I know what not to bring and probably what I should bring. So the feedback that I got from vendors was overall positive. I didn't really hear any complaints. The other thing that I'm like I was like, what's going to go wrong? Like, I was afraid to set a future date. Johnny is my co-promoter. And so I was really nervous on setting a future date, because let's see how this first show goes. And I mentioned, I'm kind of a pessimist, and I'm always thinking, what's the worst that can happen? I don't want to schedule a May show if we fall on our faces and it's just a total disaster. So that was my thought process. Johnny was the optimist. He's like, no, man, this is going to be awesome. Let's do it again. So, the only real takeaway. So the hours we did a little long, but we don't know. That was something that we didn't realize what type of customer base we were going to have, what the hot times were going to be. I mean, we had people walking in before 9, show hours 9 to 4, 8:44. I think I looked at my watch. 8:44. First customer asked, "Hey, are you open?" Yeah, sure. Most everybody was set up by that time. But by noon, it really started to slow down. We really started to see it slow down at 1. And then by 2, a couple vendors were actually one vendor, the big seller guy, he started packing up about 1:30. So really, I think realistically, 2 o'clock would be a good cutoff. I think I'm gonna depending on the early feedback we get from vendors for confirmation for next show, I think maybe we'll just cut it back an hour just to kind of play. I don't want to cut it too far and go 1 or 2 o'clock and people are still, coming back from lunch and doing that. But early return says a 2 or a 3 o'clock cutoff is probably where we want to be. But I'm probably gonna do 3 o'clock for next time. Thanks guys. And Dan, we don't know. We're going to send out some messages this week. The vendors that I did talk about or talk to, a couple of them did confirm for the next show. I've got a couple people that have reached out that weren't able to do this show that may get a table for the next show. So we have about a month. So fortunately we have, okay. I got you. So hopefully, we have some time and we have that flexibility that, obviously we want to get a majority of the tables confirmed, in the next 2 weeks. But we do have that leeway because I think we booked a few tables in the final week and then we had 3 last minute. So we ended up with 23 total tables. And I think that was 16 vendors. Let me see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 vendors, 23 tables, 15 vendors. So I think we'll have a good showing. I'm aiming for 30 tables next month, and I think that is totally doable. And we can get without without really taking that space, we can add another, let's see, 1, 2, we can add another 5 tables in that room and really it'll look the same as it did, but I think we can space it out, maybe add another row. But actually the hotel does that. Like they have the schematics on, okay, this is how many tables, this is what it's going to look like. This is what we suggest. So that's awesome. So yeah, it was very spacious, plenty of room, like a lot of room, which was awesome. So yeah, and the only, so the hours, cutting back the hours will make that change. The only other change, pun intended, we'll make is bringing more change. So I had the cash box, I had enough change, and so my previous life, I was in sports broadcasting and I did a lot of play-by-play announcing and taking notes for a broadcast. I never had enough time to take notes, and I never had enough. If you gave me a month to get ready for a broadcast, the night before I'm still like piling through trying to take notes. There's never enough time, never have what you want. And that's kind of how I feel with change. Like, it's like, I think I'll bring enough, but this is going to come up. And so we ran out of, I didn't expect so many people to pay. It was $1 admission, and I didn't expect so many people to pay $1 admission with a 20. So yeah, Herman, there's never enough change. I had quarter cards, and this is just dumb thinking on my part. I'm thinking, my thought process was, I'm selling quarter cards. People are just going to buy minimum 4 cards for $1, or they're going to buy 6 cards and I'll just say, make it $1, or, whatever, just round down, give you a bulk discount, round down, make it easy. Don't have to deal with change, coin change. And I actually had I think 2 customers that, picked out 2 cards, and it's like, shoot, I don't have any quarters. And I had other customers, so I can't just say, oh, take those for free. And fortunately, they were, I was going to go find change from my co-promoter, Johnny. And they're like, oh, I'll just grab a couple. I'm like, well, grab more than 2 to make it worth your trouble. Like, grab 4 cards. Because I didn't want to just give the cards away, but, it is, they only wanted the 2 cards. So I felt like, okay, you're spending more than what you actually wanted to spend. So that was, I will definitely bring quarters to make change next time around. But if they picked up 7 cards, it's like $1. I'm not gonna worry about going. I'm not gonna ask you to pick out another card. But if it's just 2 cards, then I felt like with other people around, like if they were the only person at my table, I would say just take them. But with other people, like I think it's bad form to say, yeah, you can have free cards, but I'm going to charge the next guy. So that was my thought process. So I will bring coin change for my quarter boxes, and I will bring a stack of ones to make change, especially to have for the registration table. I'm going to bring a lot more cards, so I'm going to find as many penny sleeves as I can in the next 3 weeks, and do some penny sleeves as I sort. So that's not, if I only bring what I brought yesterday, that's okay. But I did ask, and another thing that I did as a vendor was, and I talked about this on Hobby Roundtable last night, was, every person that was digging through the quarter boxes that I had set out, I would ask if there's anything you're looking for in particular. I might be able to point out because it was completely randomized. But I said, if there's anything that you're looking for, I can write it down and I'll bring it to the next show, which is May 22nd. So it's kind of like I can help them find cards they're looking for, help me sell more cards, and I'm promoting the next show at the same time. So it's like the triple crown. And I wrote like a half a page list of what people were looking for. So in a lot of that stuff I had, some people were looking for like finishing sets. So that like is a little more difficult for me in my disorganization. But one guy was just looking, he's like, I'm sorry, Herman, but he was looking for like 90s Braves, and Herman will still get his share, but he's like, I'm looking for Maddox, Smoltz, Clavin, Chipper, Andrew. He was looking for Kershaw and another current player, and I'm like, oh yeah, I've got plenty of that stuff that I can bring. I haven't looked through the boxes to see, because I kind of had an idea. I know some of the more current Packers cards, and I from my buddy Shannon down in Sterling, when I brought all those partial sets back, basically all the football and basketball I didn't even go through, because I was just kind of focused on baseball to pull all the Cubs and just anything for trade. And so I went through on Friday night. I go into the closet and boxes are starting to fall on me, and I grabbed, I don't know, a dozen boxes, and there was some good stuff like Aaron Rodgers. There was some decent rookies that, if I was a football collector and I saw them for 25 cents, I'd be grabbing every one of them. And I'm pretty sure those sold well. I had one guy sat at my table for about an hour, bought 300 cards, and I ended up selling about 800 quarter cards, which was a great success for me. I think at the last show, the show that's run, that was canceled today, I did that show last February, and I think I sold, I think I sold like $25 or $30 worth of quarter cards. So what's that come out to? Just over 100. So I sold about 100, 150 at the last show I did. So I was really happy moving 800 cards. So it's a great success. Good fun. My legs are a little sore. I haven't stood that long, because that's like the first event that I've like participated in what, 13 months. Last time I stood that much was probably in the Arizona sun at spring training last year. So it was kind of nice to get out and meet. I met a bunch of people from like Twitter. I had Scott came up from Chicago. My buddy Scooby McKay came up from Chicago suburbs. And he brought me some Cubs cards. I didn't bring those in here, but he brought me some Cubs cards also. Ripping one-handed Ryan from Twitter, met him for the first time, and it was cool because it was his first card show since he's a kid, and he's been collecting for a while and buys and rips a lot. and said it was his first card show since he was a kid. And so he had a great time. So it was a lot of fun. I actually did do some digging through a quarter box. So a guy that was across from me, he had nothing but quarter boxes, and he had like 12 of them. And like there was some good stuff. Like I would have sat at his table, the whole day, because there was some good stuff. There was some Cubs. I had pulled out like 12, 13, 14 Cubs cards, and I just kind of left them on top. And I'm like, it was kind of one of those things where it's like, if somebody grabs, that's fine. But I should have said, hey, I've got these cards, like, but I didn't think he would sell his entire booth in the next 10 minutes. So I had a couple people at my table. So I was checking them out, and then I got to talking to one of them. All of a sudden I look up, and there's a guy like piling up the monster boxes. He sold his whole booth. So he's like, hey, I made my money back plus, and I'm happy. So he's like, I got a bunch more, so I might be back next month. So that was cool. So it was a great show. Had a lot of fun. Great hobby roundtable last night. So that was my day. I didn't make it to obviously I didn't make it to the post office, so I didn't get any mail. I do have to check. I don't know if my wife checked our mailbox outside. I should do that this morning, because I did some eBay shopping. I picked up some cool items on eBay in the last week and a half. So I am looking to get those in the next couple days. So one that I'm super stoked, or actually two that I'm super stoked about. I bought some more Cole Roederer cards. So I'll show those off when they come. So some cool stuff. I saw something posted a couple weeks ago, and I'm like, I have to have that. So I went shopping for like similar items, Cubs items of that. And I was able to find a couple things. So looking forward to getting those in the mail. So that's what I had for today. Thanks for chatting. Thanks for watching, and have a great Sunday. We'll talk tomorrow.